The 2025 football schedule has been announced, and it is about as good as you could possibly ask for given a conference like the Southeastern. That and a whole lot more at your Friday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good Friday morning, everybody. Welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols, and I'm your host, Eric Cain. Appreciate you guys making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch each and every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and couldn't do without our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, put in the promo code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Got a busy show today to get into. Topics include the schedule release for 2025. That was later in the evening on Wednesday, so I want to react to it here on a Friday. I think it's a really, really good schedule, and I'll get to that here in a moment. But also want to talk about some trap games, hardest games, all that and more, and plus some notes on that schedule, and that'll be in segment number 2. And then a couple more players have entered the transfer portal, and none of these players have been huge losses, but it's starting to take a little bit of a toll. We'll talk a little portal chatter in segment number 3. All that and more right here on Locked On Vols. Okay, so the schedule was released earlier this week, and again, given where you are, where you're playing in the Southeastern Conference, you can't avoid some of these big games, but I think the layout of the schedule was about as good as you could possibly ask for. Now, keep in mind, all right, for the 2025 schedule, we already knew that it was going to be the same conference opponents that Tennessee played in 2024. You were just going to flip home and away. We don't know exactly what the 2026 conference schedule is going to look like. We don't think that the SEC is going to expand, or not expand. The league games are going to go from 8 to 9 games because why would it in this era of the college football playoff when the SEC is truly just beating up on one another? But, that was the talk for a long time, that 3-6 model. It feels like it's going to stay at 8 conference games for the foreseeable future, but we don't know that for sure. But nonetheless, we don't know what 2026 looks like. But we do know, we already knew going into Wednesday night, the opponents for Tennessee. We just didn't kind of know the layout. We already knew the non-conference games for the University of Tennessee, and we knew those dates. Those have already been air-marked and, on the books for quite some time. But here's kind of how it all lays out. If you're watching on YouTube right now, I'll flash it up on the screen. August the 30th, week 1, Tennessee will be in a neutral site game for the third year in a row, a neutral site game. This one takes place in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and it'll be Tennessee against Syracuse. And that Syracuse team, it's not going to be a pushover to begin the season. It has a pretty good ball club this year. So Syracuse in week 1, we knew that was going to happen. We knew East Tennessee State was going to be week number 2. You knew that UAB was going to be week 4 of the season on September the 20th. And we knew that New Mexico State was going to be November the 15th there in the non-conference game in late November, or midway through November. What we found out earlier this week was Tennessee's first conference game of the 2025 season is going to be Georgia in September. Wow. How about that? I'll give some more notes on each specific game here in a moment in segment number 2, but it's been quite some time since Tennessee has played Georgia in the month of September. It's been quite some time since Tennessee's played Florida in the month of November. I was told as soon as the schedule release was happening on the SEC network on Wednesday evening, one of my friends in the industry texted me and said, hey, Tennessee and Florida is going to be on November 22nd. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? That's so late. And then, moments later, I saw Georgia was going to be Tennessee's first conference game in early September. And I'm like, okay, so they're essentially going to flip those 2 games. And that's what happened. Georgia is going to be on wrong overlay there. Excuse me if you're watching on YouTube. Here we go. Georgia is going to be on September the 13th. Florida on the road in the swamp is going to be on November the 22nd. Mississippi State, Tennessee's first true road game of the 2025 season, is going to be September 27th. Tennessee would have already played 4 games, 3 at home, 1 in a neutral site, and then Tennessee's first true road game is going to be in Stark Vegas, September 27th against Jeff Lebby and the Fighting Bulldogs of Mississippi State. Tennessee then has an open date. So then you're at home on October 11th against Arkansas. You're at Alabama on the third Saturday in October, October the 18th. You're at Kentucky at historic Kroger Stadium, Kroger Field, whatever the heck they call that up there, October 25th. And then for the month of November, you're home against Oklahoma on November the 1st, open date on the 8th, New Mexico State, the non-conference game on the 15th of November, at Florida on the 22nd of November, and then hosting Vanderbilt to conclude the 2025 regular season. So, again, you can't avoid Georgia. You can't avoid Florida. At least we knew that wasn't going to happen, right? You can't avoid Alabama. So, but the layout is not bad, man. You are spreading out your big three. You're spreading out Georgia. Georgia is September 13th. Alabama, October 18th. Florida, November 22nd. You are essentially getting in a roundabout way almost nearly a month or over a month in between Georgia, Alabama, and Florida. How many years can we say that to be the case? Not many at all, right? You're putting a month in between Georgia, a month between Alabama, and a month between Florida. Your three big games. Your gauntlet stretch, if you want to call it that, is after that open date from the month of October. From October, Arkansas, at Alabama, at Kentucky, home against Oklahoma. That is your quote-unquote gauntlet stretch. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that's going to be easy. It's going to be challenging at Alabama. Oklahoma should be better. Arkansas beat you last year. Kentucky, some years are never a pushover. But that, we've seen gauntlets where Tennessee's playing, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, whatever other team in the SEC West they drew that year that just so happened to be cycling up and being good that year. And then it may be a premier non-conference game, like all in a span of 5 or 6 weeks. That is your gauntlet. And if that is your gauntlet, that is not bad. Again, you get after that gauntlet, you have an open date. Essentially, you have 1 week after, you play Oklahoma, you have an open date, that's 1 week. New Mexico State, sure, you're playing that game, but it's going to be a game heavily influenced by reserves. That's 2 weeks. And then you got Florida. You can spend part of New Mexico State week game planning for the University of Florida. You can spend, and again, I apologize. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, okay? You still will game plan for your opponent, but just like you'll spend part of the game planning week of New Mexico State looking ahead to Florida, Tennessee can do the same thing during East Tennessee State week, ETSU week, looking ahead to Georgia. And of course, that open day, you can look ahead to Alabama a little bit, but you got to focus on Arkansas the next week. My point is, this schedule, the setup, this schedule, the makeup, not bad. Not bad at all. Hardest game. If I were to start bench cut, the hardest game, Georgia at Alabama or at Florida, what would you say? I think obviously Georgia at home still, of course, it's going to be a new, leadership at the quarterback position and all that. I understand all that. But Georgia, obviously the Southeastern Conference champions, a college football playoff team. I think Georgia at home and getting them early, it's kind of, look at it two different ways, right? It's like, well, you can get them before they really hit their stride, or you're getting them before you really hit your stride, but you're playing them at Neyland Stadium. That's good if you're the University of Tennessee, but I think Georgia's still obviously going to be the most challenging game. And then call me crazy, Alabama's going to be a challenging game. It always is. There's good players all over that roster. They just missed out on the college football playoff, but Alabama is switching over at quarterback. You got Ryan Williams, a wide receiver. You got some tailbacks you're used to and everything. You've got some guys on defense, but big changes are coming from Alabama this offseason. That game's on the road, I recognize that, but that is not as hostile a place to play as it is between the hedges or the swamp. I can tell you that right now. I've been to both. I've been to all three places several times. Alabama is the easiest to navigate to and communicate and play inside that stadium. That's why I think if we're start bench cutting this, start Georgia in terms of the toughest game in 2025. In my opinion, you're benching Florida. Why? Because DJ Lagway is going to be a stud. It's ironic because I think the fact that he played against Tennessee this year and Graham Mertz was forced out, I think that's one of the reasons Tennessee won that game. If Graham Mertz would have stayed in and played that game and finished that game, it would have been obviously more challenging. But DJ Lagway is going to be an absolute stud. He's going to be a problem. Florida's played without a starting quarterback and a starting running back for much of the back half of the season, and they played inspired football, and they're hitting their stride. Plus, it's on the road. If I'm start bench cutting this, call me crazy, guys. Starting Georgia, which is a no-brainer. I'm going to bench on the road at Florida. and I'm going to cut on the road at Alabama. I know that sounds wild, but I think the reasoning kind of backs that up. What about trap games? Trap games could at Mississippi State be a trap game. Could at home against Arkansas be a trap game. It better not be. Arkansas beat you last year. Really, that's the only trap game that I kind of see. Honestly, would be at Mississippi State. Kind of fits that role of on the road at Arkansas this past year. So, nonetheless, the 2025 schedule, not bad. At August the 30th, Syracuse at a neutral site. September 6th, ETSU. September 13th, Georgia. September 20th, UAB. September 27th at Mississippi State. October 4th is open. October 11th is against Arkansas. October 18th is at Alabama. October 25th is at Kentucky. November 1st is at home against Oklahoma. November 8th is open. November 15th, New Mexico State. November 22nd at Florida. And November 29th, you are home against Vanderbilt. And that is your 2025 Tennessee football schedule. More notes on specific matchups in that schedule coming up here in just a moment. We'll continue reacting to Tennessee football's 2025 schedule. All that and more before we get into a little transfer portal chatter coming up in segment number 3. All that and more here on a Friday. Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. Hey guys, I want to tell you about my friends over at Game Time. Game Time is an app to where you can download and you can buy tickets to events in your area. Could be basketball games, football games, baseball games, could be concerts, comedy shows. Whatever event is happening in your area, you can download the Game Time app or go to gametime.co and you can buy tickets to that event. While you're there, put in the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. You're going to receive $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, put in the redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off, or you can download Game Time today, and last-minute tickets are always guaranteed. They're for the procrastinator like me, maybe. There's still some Christmas gifts I haven't bought, and Amazon better be on it because I have really waited to the last little bit here. If you're a procrastinator, you can buy tickets on the Game Time app, and sometimes they're even cheaper, and you can buy tickets even after the event has started. All that and more is on the Game Time app. Download Game Time today. Last-minute ticket, lowest price guaranteed. And I do want to tell you about my friends over at Home Field Apparel. It is the official apparel sponsor of Locked On Vols. Football season, it's still happening, right? The fall is changing into winter. Going to be at Columbus, Ohio, taking on Ohio State. And you want to be decked out to the nines for the college football playoffs with Home Field Apparel. That can't miss 2024 campaign's got football boxes containing 3 never-before-seen items for the University of Tennessee that are not available anywhere else. Curated so you can wear all season long, any weather conditions. Again, in Columbus, it is going to be frigid. If Tennessee wins going out to Cali and LA, it'll be a little bit warmer, right? Plus, you got a VIP box with a hat, ringer. You've got guarantees 20% off, early access to Tennessee football releases throughout the season. No more missing out on Home Field Apparel because it's sold out. Home Field Apparel is a premium collegiate apparel brand based in Indianapolis that focuses on vintage college designs. It is beautiful, beautiful vintage designs, and you can go to homefieldapparel.com to get started today. That is homefieldapparel.com to get started today. homefieldapparel.com. All right, so I told you what, we kind of recapped and reacted to the schedule in segment number 1 for 2025. Let's look at the specifics of each matchup, shall we? August the 30th, neutral site game, Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia against Syracuse. It's a part of the Aflac kickoff game, that used to be the Kickoff Classic or whatever it used to be called, the Dr. Pepper, Pepsi, I don't know what it's called. It's called the Aflac kickoff game now. It's also going to feature a game against South Carolina and Virginia Tech, I believe, the following day. Tennessee is 3-0 all-time against Syracuse. Last meeting was in 2002. Tennessee won 33-9. Syracuse finished the 2024 season with a 9-3 regular season record. It's going to play in the, I think it's the Holiday Bowl. I'll find that out here in a moment. Had an upset win over Miami, which was huge. Knocked the Hurricanes out of the college football playoff contention. The neutral site opening game here is going to be the second in 3 years for the University of Tennessee. Actually, it will be 3 straight years. Come on, Eric, be better. It's going to be 3 straight years because Virginia in Nashville, NC State in Charlotte, and, of course, this game against Syracuse. So that'll be 3 straight years. 3 straight years Tennessee will have a neutral site game. Due to the neutral site matchup, Tennessee will have opened the season at home on a Saturday one time in 5 years under the Danny White, Josh Heupel regime. Isn't that wild? Tennessee would have opened a game at home on a Saturday just one time in the first 5 years under Danny White and Josh Heupel. Tennessee will receive $3.8 million guaranteed for playing in the Aflac kickoff game, and Tennessee will serve as the home team in the contest. Again, that's against Syracuse on August the 30th. ETSU, again, it's a pay game for them. Tennessee's going to pay them $575,000 to come here. ETSU was 7-5 this past season, looking for a new head coach. They've only played, it's hard to believe, they've only played one time ever in series history, and that was back in 2015. Tennessee won 59-3. Georgia, here we go. Georgia, as we know, it's the only team that Josh Heupel has not found success over while being here at Tennessee. He's taken down Florida multiple times. He's taken down Alabama multiple times. Still hadn't gotten Georgia. Georgia has won 8 straight in the series, leads the all-time series 23-29-2. So before this 8-game win streak, Tennessee actually led the series. Tennessee's seeking its first home win in this series since 2015. UGA has Austin Peay the week before. Tennessee, of course, has ETSU, so both not very big games leading up to this one. Tennessee has not played Georgia in September since 1995. How about that? Since 1995, Tennessee's not played Georgia in the month of September. And obviously, when the SEC split into divisions in 1992, Georgia became a permanent opponent. And they played in September from 1992 to 1995, and Tennessee went 4-0 during that stretch. So from 92 to 95, Tennessee and Georgia played in September, and Tennessee was 4-0 during that stretch. So hopefully some signs to come. September 20th against UAB. Of course, that's coached by Trent Dilfer, former NFL quarterback. Tennessee is paying UAB $1.65 million. It's a pay game. It's a big pay game for them. Tennessee, this will be the 6th all-time meeting. Tennessee's won every matchup. Last time these two teams squared off was in 2019, where Tennessee won 30-7. Mississippi State. All right, Jeff Lebby and Josh Heupel obviously spent time together at UCF, even in Oklahoma. Tennessee leads the all-time series 30-16-1. Tennessee's won 8 of the last 10 matchups. Tennessee and Mississippi State, this is interesting, playing for consecutive seasons for the first time since 2007 and 2008. Before this game, Tennessee, of course, has UAB. Mississippi State hosts Northern Illinois. So both teams kind of getting a tune-up. Open date, the 4th against Arkansas. Obviously, Tennessee looking for some revenge. This series, Tennessee leads all-time series 13-7, but kind of interesting here. Last win in the series for Tennessee. Now, again, they don't play every year. SEC East, SEC West, prior to this past season. The last win in the series for Tennessee, 2007. Arkansas has won 4 straight. Tennessee and Arkansas both are on a bye before this game, and of course Tennessee's looking to get some payback against Arkansas, because Arkansas gave Tennessee the one black eye on its resume this year in regards to the college football playoff pursuit. Tennessee and Alabama. 3rd Saturday in October, Alabama leads that series 60-40-7. Tennessee's won 2 of the past 3, though, but Tennessee has not won in Tuscaloosa in this series since 2003. Alabama has Missouri the week before on the road. Tennessee, of course, has Arkansas at home. Kentucky game. Tennessee leads the all-time series 85-26-9. Tennessee's won 4 straight, 8 of the past 10 games. Kentucky hosts Texas, whereas Tennessee is on the road at Alabama the week before Kentucky. The Oklahoma game in November. Of course, Josh Heupel's 1-0 against his former team that he led to a national championship as a starting quarterback and runner-up in the Heisman Trophy race. Oklahoma won in double overtime at Neyland Stadium in 2015. Oklahoma leads the all-time series 3-2. Oklahoma hosts Ole Miss the week before, where Tennessee is in Lexington taking on Kentucky. November the 8th, an open date. New Mexico State, pay game for them. They're going to make $1.6 million. So again, you play in that Aflac kickoff game, you get 3.8, right? Well, you have 2 pay games that are 1.6 and another one that's $575K. So it's almost kind of like a trade-off, right? New Mexico State, of course, this will be the first time the programs have ever met, obviously. Aggies, not a good ball club in 24. 3-9 was the record. So, yeah, that should be exactly what you think it's going to be. Here we go. Florida game in November. Tennessee's not won in the Swamp since 2003. Tennessee's won 2 of the past 3 matchups, but Tennessee's not won in the Swamp since 2003. Florida is at Ole Miss the week before. A huge game for Florida is at Ole Miss, where Tennessee, of course, the week before is hosting New Mexico State. That lines up really, really nicely for Tennessee. Get this, Tennessee and Florida will play for the 4th time ever in the month of November. They played in 1952, 1953, and 1954 in the month of November. This will be the 4th time Tennessee's playing Florida in the month of November, and I'm sure this might be the latest game that these two programs have ever met, this being on the 22nd of November. The programs did play a game in December. If you remember the rescheduled game from 9/11, Tennessee won that one. A huge, huge win, a heavyweight battle, 34-32 on December the 1st, 2001. Back in the 90s and early 2000s, many around the league wanted to move this game, Tennessee and Florida, to the end of November due to implications for the SEC East race. But Florida State matchup, that was always a hiccup, so they could obviously never get it done. Again, I just love these notes from Georgia and Florida matchup. Georgia in September, Florida in November. Really, really interesting stuff. And then, of course, Vanderbilt. Tennessee will be playing a huge one on the road in Gainesville the week before, where Vanderbilt will be hosting Kentucky. Tennessee's won 6 straight, 7 of the last 10 matchups. Tennessee's dominated the all-time series 81-32-5. I don't know, maybe that was boring for you guys. I love nerd stats and stuff like that, so I had a good time collabing with Brent Hubbs, writing a story about that over at volquest.com and kind of sharing some notes and having the media guides open and browsers. I thought it was a whole lot of fun. So schedule release was cool. I like the way Tennessee did it on their social media accounts after the TV program was over. But the 2025 Tennessee football schedule has finally been released, and it's not bad, in my opinion. You got a tough one, week 3 against Georgia. But overall, not bad, in my opinion, for sure, especially the layout. Hey, when we come back, we will do a little portal chatter, right? The transfer portal is open. No additions, but several losses. That and more coming up next. We continue on here with a Friday Locked On Vols. I want to tell you guys about my good friends, the good people, my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can tackle the NFL action this weekend with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you're placing your bets. It's made so easy, safe, secure, easy to use app. You're going to have a blast on the FanDuel Sportsbook app, and you can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Tennessee basketball, number one ranked team in the country. Huge matchup against Illinois this weekend. The line's not set yet, but it's going to be a close one. You can put some coin in your pocket by checking out that line over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Never waste a hunch. Make every single moment more with FanDuel. It's an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Okay, so welcome back in here to a Friday Locked On Vols. Couple minutes left here, and I wanted to kind of recap where Tennessee is in terms of the transfer portal. So yesterday, Tennessee lost wide receiver Nathan Laycock to the transfer portal, and I like Nathan. I covered his recruitments. He was always gracious with his time, was always talk to me. Good kid. I wish him the best for sure. And that's a lot of these guys. Wish them the best because you get especially if you cover recruiting, you get to know these guys. You kind of get to know who they are and all that, and so you wish them the best. But overall, his 2 years at Tennessee, it was not productive. Right? He overall, I think he played 52 offensive snaps. He redshirted last year, appeared in 1 game. It was the homecoming win over UConn. He appeared in 5 games this year. He totaled 1 reception for 13 yards. That was in the season opener against Tennessee Chattanooga. Again, I'll mention 52 offensive snaps in 2 years. So again, this is not a huge loss for the University of Tennessee. I'm not trying to make it out to be. However, it is the 7th portal loss for the Vols. And more importantly, it is the 3rd wide receiver lost to the transfer portal. And again, we've talked about it. Caleb Webb, like his makeup, I think he can turn into a pretty good player. It just didn't pan out here. He played a little bit. It just didn't pan out here. So not a huge loss. Chaz Nimrod, not productive, but he did play a lot last year and this year due to injuries. but he was also a guy in the slot position that was Squirrel White's backup. So that, again, is one of those questions we're going to have to find out. Where is Squirrel White health-wise? Again, left the game against Vanderbilt, post-game walking on the field, had his arm in a sling. See guys in boots all the time, guys, riding on a scooter all the time after games. Doesn't mean that they're going to be out, but it's just trying to take it easy. But where is Squirrel White health-wise, okay? And even if Squirrel White plays, who's the second option in the slot? Again, is it going to be freshman Braylon Staley, who redshirted this year, saw action in 3 games? Or could they slide Brew McCoy down? Could they put Dante Thornton in the slot if they need to? Brew McCoy didn't play against Vanderbilt. Dante Thornton didn't play the second half against Vanderbilt. Again, you're kind of battered and bruised at wide receiver, but Chaz Nimrod is at least a guy who's played and been there and done that. But again, overall production, it's not a big loss. Like, the loss of Chaz Nimrod is more for this college football playoff run for depth purposes than anything. But you now have 3 players who have gone from the wide receiver position. So you look at the wide receiver position, and it's like, all right, well, what do you kind of schedule with next year? Thinking about it, okay, well, you're losing Dante Thornton. You're losing Brew McCoy. You've already lost Chaz Nimrod, Caleb Webb, and now Nathan Laycock. That's 5 wide receivers, okay? You're expected to have back Squirrel White. You're expected to have back Chris Brazzell. You're expected to have back Mike Matthews. Those are 3 guys who have played, 3 guys you feel good about. You're expected to have back Braylon Staley. And I say expected because you just never know in this era of college football. Expected to have back Braylon Staley, who I just mentioned a moment ago, but he's very unproven. Okay, he's not played a lot. I like him. Good kid. Good makeup. We'll see if he turns into anything. But right now, he redshirted. He wasn't. He didn't see much time in the regular season. And again, I will remind you guys that postseason games don't count towards a redshirt. So Braylon Staley can definitely play in the postseason. College football's changed a lot in the last 5 or 6 years. But then you have Braylon Staley. That's 4. And then you're bringing in 3. Travis Smith, who you feel really, really good about, but how quickly can he help? Or Darius Jackson, that you feel really, really good about, but how quickly can he help? And then Joakim Dotson, who Dotson I do not believe is going to be an early enrollee. How quickly can he kind of jump on the ball and kind of learn and be a contributor? So that's 7 guys right there, 3 of which are true freshmen. In my opinion, you have absolutely got to go to the transfer portal. And I'm not saying go out and get a big splash guy that you pay a lot of money to, like a Dante Thornton or Chris Brazzell. You got to go get a body. And I'm not just saying go get a body for the sake of a body, but at this point, you kind of, in my opinion, you kind of need to. Like, go get a guy that's played some. Go get a guy that you're not going to have to break the bank for. Go get a guy that will come in and compete and be serviceable if you need him. Or in high upside and potentially it clicks and hey, he's here. Look at Miles Kitselman. That's exactly what happened with Miles Kitselman this year. I think you've at least got to go to the portal and get 1, at least. If the opportunity presents itself, I would take 2. But I think this would be different than a Dante Thornton grab or a Chris Brazzell grab. Those guys were highly targeted, publicized transfer portal additions that Tennessee was praised for when they landed them. I'm not saying Tennessee won't get one of those guys this offseason, but more than anything, just go get some guys. Guys who have played, in my preference, guys who are experienced, who will be serviceable depth options. Because I like Mike Matthews, I like Squirrel White, I like Chris Brazzell, and we'll see what happens. I'm not saying you should, bet the mortgage on those 3 guys next year for being really, really good for Tennessee, but I do like that start. So I think wide receiver is absolutely a place that Tennessee needs to target in the transfer portal now. So Tennessee now has 7 players in the transfer portal. The 3 receivers I've mentioned, Caleb Webb, Chaz Nimrod, now Nathan Laycock, joins running back Khalifa Keith, offensive lineman Vyson Lang, cornerback Jordan Matthews, and linebacker Jalen Smith, who are all in the transfer portal. That is 7, count them, 7 Tennessee Volunteers who are in the transfer portal. Of those guys, again, as we spoke on this show, Chaz Nimrod and Jalen Smith are the only 2 that really have played a role for Tennessee this football season. Jalen Smith more so than anything. He was named to the freshman All-SEC team the other day as a redshirt freshman. Weird role. I don't like that. But Jalen Smith's like the 4th linebacker. He's a backup. He plays a lot of snaps for Tennessee. Edwin Spillman are going to get those snaps now in the playoffs. But not huge losses. But now Tennessee's kind of up to 7. So when we're talking about portal attraction, who does Tennessee want to go get in the transfer portal? Interior offensive lineman's a must. Interior defensive lineman's a must. I think wide receiver is now a must as well. I think Tennessee needs and will go and attack and try to find a wide receiver in the transfer portal. And I'm not saying Tennessee's done losing guys in the transfer portal, but if this is kind of the big storm and you survive it, and of course, playoff teams or any team playing after the cutoff date of December the 28th in a bowl game or the playoffs, they will get 5 extra days to enter the portal when the season's over. So I'm not saying it's done, but if this is the biggest part of your storm, I think you're going to weather it just fine. But I do think Tennessee needs to go and find a wide receiver in the transfer portal now. I definitely do. Appreciate you guys as always. Thank you so much for joining us here on Locked On Vols and making it your first listen, your first watch each and every single morning. We're live, free, and available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Big thanks to all my guests this week for stopping by the show, and a big thank you, everydayers, for making the show what it is. Hey, enjoy the weekend, guys. Watch a little Tennessee basketball this weekend, and then, hey, gear up. College football playoffs next week. We're going to have full-fledged Tennessee-Ohio State preview. Going to have some great guests on to get you ready for Tennessee and the college football playoffs. All that and more starting on Monday. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. This is Locked On Vols.